more global, affecting women from everywhere.
On January 8th, I woke up about 2:30 in the morning, and I felt like my heart was going to jump out of my chest. And my heart had been beating faster before, but it wasn't like this. It was just, it was crazy. I called the maternity ward at the hospital that I was going to deliver at, and they said, that doesn't sound right, come in. We almost didn't go in because the doctor had said it was in my head. And so I was thinking, I'm crazy, but then I thought, if something is wrong, at least they could save the baby, because that was my only concern. And instead of going to the close hospital, we decided to go to the one I was going to deliver at that was over an hour away. And the whole time I'm apologizing to my wife. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I know this is just in my head. And we had to get somebody to watch our kids overnight. And I get into the hospital, and because I'm having the feelings of chest issues, they decided to do my vitals right away. And I have very little memory of that day, but I specifically remember telling the nurse that apologizing, because once again I was saying that I know probably nothing is wrong, and he was kind of chuckling. And then all of a sudden his face completely drained of color, and he snatched up the phone and said, "Code blue stat." And 4 people came rushing in, and they took me back. I found out later that my heart rate was 262, and my blood pressure was 197 over 150 something. The cardiologist said that the fact that I didn't have a heart attack or stroke, nothing short of a miracle. He said I should not have survived.
Miracle.
And he actually did not think I was going to survive those first few hours. They finally got my heart rate down with I had 4 injections of 2 different types of medications, and they had 2 IVs running in my arms. And they finally got my heart rate down to the 130s. Still something they're not comfortable with, especially when you're pregnant. And they were going back and forth, and then I know it was afternoon, and they came in and they said, "You have a form of heart failure." Now what's interesting is I looked at my records afterwards. ER just said heart failure. The cardiologist said peripartum cardiomyopathy, PPCM.
Right.
But I didn't register any of that. All I heard was that my heart was failing. And he did say that it was possible to reverse it, but they needed to deliver the baby as soon as possible because I was dying. And the only thing is they don't like doing C-sections on Fridays because you're more likely to have complications. So they decided to wait until Monday. And they took me to the maternity ward, and they had a nurse from the cardiac unit come, and they had a nurse from the cardiac unit with me 24/7 until I delivered, so that she could watch my heart rate. And I don't think it really hit me just how crazy everything was. It hit my wife first, because when they said that they were going to deliver, she was already gone to go check on our other kids. And I called her on the road, and I had never seen her cry before, and I heard her break down over the phone, because when they said that they needed to deliver the baby on Monday. And it wasn't until literally right before I went into the OR on that Monday, and they said, "By the way, you're not going to the maternity ward, you're going up to the cardiac unit, and your baby can't go with you." And that was when everything hit me. I was 36 weeks pregnant. This was supposed to be the C-section where I was going to get skin to skin with my child, because the other 3, my third one, had to go to the NICU, and my first 2, it wasn't a baby-friendly hospital because they hadn't developed those procedures yet. So I had been away from them with every time. My first 2 was only 2 hours. My third, it was 10 hours. With Elliot, my youngest, it was 32 hours that I ended up being separated from. he was fine. He was 4 weeks premature, but his APGARs were perfect. He had no issues. As soon as they got him out, my heart rate dropped to 90. It went completely back to normal as soon as he was out.
Wow.
And you know what? It was really good once we were reunited because I was so scared. I had never been away from my new babies for that long of time. I recovered heart function, full heart function in 6 months. My EF went to 55 by the time he was 6 months old. However, that wasn't the only issue I ended up having. And I didn't even realize that this was because of the effects of PPCM. Before I had my son, I had a near photographic memory. I could remember everything. And I can't remember very much of his first year of life. And I still am very slowly starting to get my memory, not back, but I'm starting to retain more than I used to. I know that Dr. James Fett, who is the PPCM expert, had mentioned that in one of his articles that it can take up to 5 years. So Elliot is 4.5, and I'm just starting to see improvement in my memory. But I was so sick for that first year. I look at pictures and I can remember from the pictures. But if you ask me to remember something that doesn't have a photograph, I have no memory of that first year. But another thing I think is very interesting with Elliot, that I consider him a miracle, is so he was born on January 11th at 10:46 a.m. 2016. Just before I was 16, my little brother passed away. I've lost 2 brothers, but my little brother passed away. His birthday was January 11th, 1986, and he was born at 10:46 a.m. So they were born to the minute, exactly 30 years apart.
Wow, that is a blessing. Oh my gosh.
And if I had named my first son after my 2 brothers had passed away, I probably would have named Elliot after my little brother because of when he was born. And, you know, it's just, and my brother was a preemie too. It was so crazy how it kind of all went together. My cardiologist, though, when he reviewed my OB records, he realized that my heart rate and my blood pressure was actually steadily rising with each appointment. And he said that I should have been delivered at my appointment on December 22nd. He said if he had seen my heart rate then, because my heart rate was in the 150s, and he said if he had seen that, he would have delivered me immediately. Because he said there was no way I should have continued going on with my pregnancy. And it was another 3.5 weeks before Elliot was delivered because I ended up in the hospital. He reported my OB for medical neglect. And she actually did, she was, it was a written thing. I'm sorry. Like I said, my brain doesn't remember words anymore sometimes.
Yeah.
She was written up. She had to actually go back and retake obstetric courses, particularly in terms of heart failure in pregnant women. She's back working there, but I won't see her again because it wasn't just that she missed it. She was so dehumanizing and dismissive. And I have found a lot of other heart sisters have had similar experiences where the doctors are just like, you're fine, it's all in your head.
Yes, like we're crazy.
Yes. Well, like, so this isn't part of it, but I broke my foot over a year ago, and the orthopedist literally has been dismissing the fact that I still have issues because of nerve damage from the break. And it brings me back to all of that where they're like, you're fine. Don't worry.
Don't listen. They don't even like take in consideration or try to further into what we may think is going on, especially in our case because of, you know, the traumatic trauma that comes with the diagnosis alone is, how could you not listen to me in the future? With
Well,
anything.
and no, and you're completely right, because with my very first child, I had a feeling that he was going to be very big and that something was going to go wrong. And because it was my first pregnancy, my OB at the time kind of dismissed the concerns, and it became a crash C-section. They had to get him out in 15 minutes. And, she came into the recovery room and she took my hand and she said, "I am so sorry that I did not listen to you. I shouldn't have dismissed you just because you were a first-time mom." My second child was actually born 12 months and 12 days later after my first child. They're that close together. And when I got pregnant and I went back to her, because she apologized and admitted, what I'm saying, she listened to everything I told her, everything.
Yes.
And I was so sad that she wasn't available to be my doctor.
Oh, I hate when that happens. You get the right one, the one that's actually going to do everything. Yes, that happened to me.
Oh my
I
gosh,
still have to find a new one. Yes, but your story is just so interesting, and the fact that your obstetrician, how she handled that situation, she should have went back to training, because that's like that's more than neglect. It's like not even showing that you love your job, or that's I wouldn't even know what to call it other than that.
No,
So
yeah, I mean, I don't know how people can be doctors if they're going to be so dismissive. And we see that with women, but we especially see that not just with women, but any people of color. My little sister is biracial, and she is dismissed all the time, just because she is a young Black woman. And it infuriates me because she knows herself and she knows what happened to me. So she's chosen not to have kids, not just because of what happened with me, but because of everything that has gone on. She's actually told me she doesn't want to see her kids die.
Really?
So she has made the choice. She said she's just going to be an aunt. And I feel so bad for her. She would be an amazing mother. She is just the sweetest, coolest, most beautiful person I know. But people, they dismiss us and they dismiss her, and she knows that. She sees it.
Exactly. I sure have. Well, I hope in the future she maybe change her mind, and
I'm crossing my fingers.
I know there's good doctors out here, and it's just we have to go through the bad ones to kind of find the good ones in there, and that's the one thing, because I kind of fall on that there's a lot, because most of our heart sisters, the stories are similar. Everybody's story is about similar. Didn't nobody know what it was until we was actually in heart failure, something wrong with your heart. Oh, it's PPCM. Okay, well, what is that? My obstetrician didn't tell me about that. Well, your obstetrician didn't know about that, and it's like, why didn't they know about that? So,
because it happens it happens more than people realize. I mean, they had told me it was really, really rare, and I didn't even know there was a name until 2 years after he was born. And that's when I did a search and I found the groups and I found my heart sisters, because I thought I was alone. I had no idea.
Wow, I felt the same way, because I think 2 years after my diagnosis, and because I didn't find out exactly what took my sister's life until 3 years later.
Yeah,
after her
when
death.
You went into it.
Exactly. And then it wasn't until 2 years later, I randomly had a thought to just look it up on Facebook one day. And then I ran across these groups. And I was like, what? I was like, there's more women with this condition. I'm thinking that we was just alone by ourselves. Like, y'all got hit with a random condition. Nobody knows about it. But no, it's like out there. It's real. And it's unfair to, not even with just us, but the women that don't even get a chance to know what it is before something goes wrong, and
all the moms that don't make it. Because,
exactly.
I mean, I think they don't even, there was one mom, it was back, and I think this last July, they didn't know what it was, but she passed away at the end of her pregnancy. And
I think I remember that one.
And because she was a YouTuber, and the stuff
Yes.
she was describing, I went back and, I don't really watch YouTube, but I went back and I started watching her videos, and I'm like, that sounds like PPCM to me.
It did. Oh my goodness. Like, just the horror and how she was explaining it. And I had relived that moment when I actually went into that moment, the shortness of breath. And, I think she had mentioned that she ran or couldn't walk across the room or something.
Yeah.
She felt like she was dying. I was like, wow,
When I was watching her video, it just threw me back, and I started crying. And my wife, she didn't know what had happened. She's like, "What's going on?" And I told her, and I said, I almost didn't go to the hospital. That could have been me and Elliot, and I can't help but wonder if, she was dismissed as well. And she did mention her doctor said everything was normal.
It was normal.
It is not normal for a pregnant woman to not be able to walk across the room without feeling like they're going to pass out or they're struggling to breathe. And any doctor or midwife that tells a woman that that is normal has no clue. I'm sorry.
That is so true. I agree with that. No, I agree. Hold on. My kids are running.
It's okay. I lock the door so my kids are good, because my kids are loud. Your kids were all super sweet and quiet. They just kind of peeked.
Yeah, they know what I'm doing. They did that on purpose. I always got to see what Mommy's doing. Thank you. Yeah, I try not to have any distractions in between, but I'm like, I'm a mom too, so I totally get it. So,
we all understand.
Yeah, but I mean, that's, yeah, I'm so glad, but that's a real good thing about having the Heart Sisters. And that's why I was like, I just wanted to find some kind of way on how we could all shine the light and be able to spread and talk about our stories, if not together, or, at least just meeting virtually, since this is the new thing now. I mean, like, who wouldn't have thought of that, like we could meet Zoom or whatever.
But in some ways, this is so good because it opens this avenue up for us to be able to connect, even though we're so physically far apart.
That is so true. Like, being nationwide like this is like a plus, because I'm able to like meet you guys, and I mean, it's something exciting for me, I guess. I feel like I wanted to do it because it's a way I feel like keep my sister alive, and I don't know if it seems weird to other people. I know it has, because like some questions had been brought to me in the past when I first started, like, why are you talking so much about it, and why are you,
I have people say the
why
same
are you
thing.
taking it, why are you taking it that far, and why are you, and it's like, well, if somebody would have did that for me and my sister probably would be alive today, because we probably would at least saw a sneak peek or something popped up on our social media, because we both was Facebookers. We probably would have saw something about shortness of breath. Are you having shortness of breath while you're pregnant or something? Because she did. She had symptoms, and her obstetrician ruled it off as normal, all the way up until she was in the emergency room and shortness of breath. And so it's like, no, we get ignored, and I feel like a woman shouldn't have to go through that.
I think also, as as a sister, especially, I understood where you were coming from so much with that, because I have lost two brothers. My older brother and I, we were less than 2 years apart. We were closer than close, and he took his own life. And I'm a big advocate for him. And I've had people say, well, you've never tried to take your own life. Why do you keep bringing this up? I'm like, because I don't want anybody to ever go through what I went through. I don't want any family to feel that way. And so when I saw your post about your sister, I understood, because you don't want any other women, you don't want any other families to go through what you guys went through.
Exactly.
And I completely understand that. But
Well,
yeah,
thank you so
people
much.
said
I'm
the
so
same thing to
sorry
me
you
at
had to
first.
go through that. I'm so sorry that we both just have to deal with grief, because grief can tear you apart, and that's what I tell people. I know, us as heart sisters, and the diagnosis of PPCM is one thing, but we still have life, like another part of us. We still have where we came from, our past, our present, and where we're probably going now with a new normal life, new emotions we have to deal with, the triggers now, the mental state, the physicalness of it, doctor's appointments, medication, and it's so fortunate. I'm so glad that you was able to recover within 6 months. Because we hear a lot of times a lot of the women
Where they
don't.
don't.
Yeah, and I didn't recover until about 2.5 years later, and then we're seeing the heart sisters, the ones that have to get transplants, and it's just so intense. It's such a serious illness that I feel like a lot of people is not giving attention to, maybe because it didn't happen to them or because they don't think it's going to happen to them. But I was one of those people who didn't think it would happen to me, even with watching my sister go through it. But because it wasn't a name for it, they just ruled hers as just a cardiac arrest. It wasn't
Yeah.
PPCM. Now they have PPCM on hers now, after my cardiologist went in there and corrected everything. So I was very thankful to have a good cardiologist to be able to know what was going on. And of course, we get told we can't have any more, and so on. But thank you so much for just sharing your story with me and the nation. So we could be able to have a little bit more understanding, because each story is different. Like I tell heart sisters all the time, the ones that do share their stories on the Let's Talk PPCM page, I try to encourage them, on why it's important for us to share our stories, and if people either they do or they don't, and that's totally fine, because triggers are real. And a lot of people, like somebody had asked me, well, what is anxiety? I don't even know what that is, and it's like, it's horrible. I can't even explain it until you either went through something that put you into it. Because I never had anxiety attacks until I was diagnosed with PPC. I never knew what it was. I never knew that it could affect people like that. I didn't know. And
No,
it's horrible.
100% the same. I grew up in foster care and abusive situations, and despite all of that, I never had anxiety. I was able to kind of, just handle things myself. I was actually called the black sheep of the family because I didn't have any mental breakdowns. But then after I had Elliot, anytime I would, even now, if it just feels like my heart is speeding up, and I wear an Apple iWatch, and so I keep track of it, and a lot of the times it's not actually very much higher than normal. It's like maybe 98 when it's normally 90, but I can feel that slight difference, and just the anxiety just comes over. You're like, am I relapsing? Am I going to end up in the hospital? Am I going to leave my kids without a mom? And it's
Yes.
terrifying.
Yes,
It's
that's it.
terrifying.
That is it, right there. I could be laying down in bed, and if I feel like a palpitation, oh my goodness, I don't know. I immediately take my blood pressure. I'm trying to see where's my blood pressure at, and then the pills make your blood pressure all, loopy and stuff. Was you on medication for life, or did they go ahead and take you off?
They took me off after 9 months. Once I'd gone 3 months without any type of incident after I reached the normal. They still have me do the echocardiogram once a year, though. We did notice, even though I'm still within normal, my EF did drop a little bit after I broke my foot. They're hoping next year even though it's still within normal, that it'll go back up, because we all know that 55 and up is normal, and I was still at 55 in the last one. But 2 years ago, before I broke my foot, I was at 66, and then right after I broke my foot, it dropped to 60, and then it dropped to 55. But they said everything looks good, and there's just mild scarring on the left ventricle. Other than that, they said it's still working. My heart is working exactly the way it's supposed to. And I know I was one of the lucky ones, because when I was diagnosed, my EF was borderline to need an LVAD. And I was they were keeping an eye. They said if it dropped any lower, they were going to have me do all of that. And luckily, when I went in for the cardiac ultrasound, the echocardiogram at 3 months postpartum, I had gone up to, I think it was 45%. And they said it was just a huge jump. And he said it shouldn't have
Wow,
happened.
that is.
He said it shouldn't have happened. He said you were almost dead. He said you would have died. And when a doctor looks you right in the, I remember I was telling him about when I told my wife the day after Christmas, I had rolled over in bed and I looked at her and I said, I'm not going to survive having this baby. I feel like I'm dying. And I told my cardiologist that I had said that to her, and he said, Bethany, you were dying at that point.
Wow.
And it's a very powerful when a doctor
hear
tells
that.
you. Yeah. And so like now I'm like, nope, I need to make sure I'm here for my kids. I want to see my kids get married. I want to see my grandkids. You know, and my heart always breaks for the moms who don't make it, because every time I see the stories, I break down. But at the same time, I think it's important for us to share those stories for them as well, because what they went through shouldn't be forgotten.
Exactly. And I guess I'm so glad you said that, because I think that is exactly what I be trying to get people to understand. I don't want her to be forgotten, because I lost my mom to breast cancer back when I was 12, and my sister, we kind of helped each other go through that, and my grandmother, and we had each other to lean on. But then it's kind of like we never did anything after that. We never did anything to like keep her name going, keep her alive, and then I kind of like felt regret for it after I lost my sister. So I was like, well, how can I bring them both their days? I don't know, and so I knew after I was diagnosed with the same condition, after they let me know it was confirmed, this is the same condition as your sister, I was like, I got to do something. I had to do something. And, and it just shows that helps me, like I said, with the emotional part of missing her. So I try to do the best I can, and I try to keep my happy face on, because I want other people to be happy. So I thank God for keeping me a smile at all times, but I do have my moments, I think we all do. We all go through those moments. Yeah. So, but yes, you are so strong, and I'm just so glad that everything is going well now. And that, your wife doesn't have to worry about that part anymore, because that was a scary situation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I wanted to have another one even after that, especially once I recovered. And even though I'm considered a good candidate, my wife was like, no. She's like, we can do surrogacy, we can do adoption. I don't want you pregnant again. She said, I don't want to have to raise these kids by myself. And I get it, but at the same time, I'm like, but I want to have another one. But then you're also like, you want to be here for your kids. It's like, it's so hard.
Yes. What to choose. Yes. And then you're at that point, if it happens, it happens. Or if I just go through it, or maybe we could just try, and then like we asked the other Heart sisters, well, how was it for you? And I think it helps
and everybody
a lot.
Has their own stories. Yeah. Because it's so different. Some, like you said, some women like me were able to fully recover. Other women, they need heart transplants. They relapse, like Catherine did a couple of years ago, and she was fine for over 2 decades. And
she did really good. She did so good. I just watched a short film with her in it the other day. My very first short film, I had her in it. I was so glad to have her in that. That was sad.
Oh yeah. When she passed away, especially when she was telling us that she had relapsed, and I think it brought it home for all of us, even those of us who fully recovered. We can still relapse. We, just because we beat it doesn't mean that we shouldn't keep a close eye out to make sure if we do relapse that we catch it very early, and that maybe we can beat it again.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's the hope.
People look at us as rubber bands, like, oh, well, after you stretch, you back to, to one piece now, so nothing's gonna go wrong now. And that's the other hard part of the mental, physical part that we have to go through, with the emotions of other people are not going to understand like the way we understand. So, and that's another part that I have to grieve and get over. So, but yes, I'm so glad that you hit on all of these different topics. They were so important. I'm about to go to end our session. I'm finna stop our recording. Hold on. Thank you guys for tuning in to our PPCM chats with Heart Sister Miss Beth. All right, let's end it. Let's see.